Grateful that you've come on the show today to tell us about this process, because we must tell these stories. Good morning, America, Australia, New Zealand, and also a huge good morning to Vince. Vince, how are you going?
I am good. I'm so happy to be on here. That was such an inspirational intro. I was like, oh man, I was choking up. It was awesome.
To all our listeners, look, I must apologize. Over in Queensland, Australia, there are some massive storms, and our beautiful host, Toni Lontis, is stuck in the middle of them, and she has no internet. So it is just myself and Vince Warnock this morning, but I'm sure that we'll get enough information from Vince to make you want to contact him. Vince, my name is Kes Wickham St. George. I'm your host for this morning, and we've already had a wee chat, and I'm already just so impressed. I can't wait to get into the story with you. So tell me, how did it all originate with you? Where did Vince originate from?
Oh, wow. Once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away. No, so look, okay, background on me. I'll go through the very whirlwind tour on this. I actually grew up here in New Zealand, but I grew up in a very poverty-stricken area, and I grew up in a really abusive household, but managed to break free of all of that. And that was due to having a really amazing teacher around me that showed me that I can aspire to be something amazing. I can aspire to actually help people. I can aspire to do something with my life. That was at age 11. I'll never forget. He was an incredible teacher, but he really did inspire me a lot. And so from there, I've always had this entrepreneurial kind of bent. In fact, when I was 11 was when I launched my first company. Please don't hold me to account to this. Note that I came from a background where I had no moral compass. Like, my parents were abusive, so I had nothing to really kind of guide me at all. So my first company was literally selling pirated video games. I worked out, I had a Commodore 64, and I'm like, wow, all the games and software for this are on cassette tape. Ta-da! So I used to sell these and make a lot of money from that. So I've always had that kind of inclination towards entrepreneurship. Now, every company I've had since then, I'll just clarify, have been above board, and I now have a very strong moral compass, just stating. But for me, through most of my career, I've kind of been in and out of both camps. I've been in and out of entrepreneurship, in and out of corporate life. So in the early days, I would create and fail a company and then go back to corporate with my tail between my legs going, oh, and then build up enough money, start another company, until finally I started creating companies and then selling them and actually moving on from them, having success. And I had just come off the back of my largest acquisition, actually. It was a company called Common Ledger, which we built over 3.5 years of extreme stress and extreme anxiety. But we actually exited that for multi-8 figures. And then for me, that was like, okay, now I need a new chapter of my life. I wouldn't admit this to the team, but I went to go and work at Cigna Insurance for a holiday because I thought this is going to be a lot less stressful than having my own company. But I took the chief marketing officer role there and was at Cigna for 5 years. And on that 5 years on paper was the dream job. Like, seriously, this is what most marketers aspire to. I had the super large corporate, corner office, one of the top floors here. In fact, I had the biggest office, but I wasn't allowed to say that because the CEO was like, no,
but you've just said it.
Biggest. Yeah, exactly. I had the Mad Men style whiskey cabinet. It was awesome. I got to work on some incredible projects. The pay was ludicrous. But then also I started getting the results and started getting the recognition for those results as well. Managed to.
That's what happens, isn't it? You get results, you get recognition.
Oh, I've always been a firm believer. I do the opposite of what most guys do. So guys, and the difference between men and women going into a corporate environment, often, not always, but often, is men will always kind of go, you know what, I don't think I can do the job, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to demand lots of money for this. Whereas women go in and go, I want to prove myself. I've always been on the prove myself side of things, where I go in and go, you know what, I don't care what you pay me. I'm going to show you what I'm worth anyway, and then you're going to end up paying me what I want. So it's a simple.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
And it worked. It really did. Yeah. Like I said, I took their online sales from next to nothing. Like everyone said to me, you can't do online sales for insurance, Vince, especially medical and life insurance. Nobody does that. It's too hard. And I went, I'm a marketer. Hold my beer. I've got this.
Yeah.
So I took that from nothing to almost 50% of their revenue. So basically double the revenue. Yeah, double the revenue of a Fortune 100.
Well, now this is on air, Vince. You'll have people knocking on your door saying, please come and work for me.
Oh, no. I am long done in corporate, by the way. For those of you that want to come and knock, listen to the rest of the story, because getting that recognition. For sure. Yeah,
so
getting that recognition.
We're going to talk about your book. Your book is called Chasing Insights. Now, I found that really, really interesting. What does it encourage the reader to do, as in take action, education? What does it encourage your readers to do?
Yeah. Well, I set about with the book. So Chasing the Insights was really about bringing in a framework for experimentation. So for marketers, so for anyone that's into marketing or entrepreneurship, it really was giving you a framework to be able to bring experimentation in. So that was how I set out. So that was what I really wanted to give people from that. But what I discovered within there was two other kind of elements that really were important. One of them was shifting a mentality. And I really did want to shift this. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know this, everyone tells you that there's some silver bullet that's going to make you succeed, like create an online course that's evergreen. Next thing you know, you're going to be rolling in the money, or launch an NFT series and you're going to be a millionaire and overnight and all these kind of things, or create an online community, a Facebook group, and it will just profit you and profit you and profit you. But the reality is none of that's true, and all of that's true. Because what we do is we chase this silver bullet syndrome. We go, okay, that's the one thing that's going to get me success.
Yes.
And what I wanted to do was change people's narrative around that and change their understanding to realize that actually it's not about chasing the one thing. It's about progress. It's about a progressive increase. So for all of us, the more we try new things, the more we experiment with new things, the more we look at why things are working and why they aren't, we're going to see these incremental gains. And that was really what I set about to do. And then the other thing was actually changing the mindset, because a lot of people fear failure. And I saw this with, actually, Kes, you'll appreciate this, saw this with one of my first companies, or one of my early companies. We created over a thing called a startup weekend, which is where it's technically 72 hours, not 48 or something. So it's not really a weekend, but over this period of time, you build a business, right? You gather people together, you build a business, compete with others. Yeah. And I came up with this concept that was just going to take over the world. It was awesome. It's called Mobile Combat. It was a mobile game that pit iPhone users versus the very new at the time Android users, and probably 3 people in the world that use Windows Mobile, so it was all these different mobile phones. And it was this game where you would battle each other and things. And I thought, this is going to be amazing. So I did my testing on that, did my user testing and focus groups and all that. And it was going to be huge. It was going to be the next big thing. It failed miserably, and it failed for 2 reasons. One, I had the wrong developer. I really did. And the second thing was I spent all my time researching consumer behavior, and will they buy this, and will they buy into it rather? So they'll buy the microtransactions within there, but forgot to actually research the landscape, and missed a glaringly obvious thing, which is that Apple do not like to be compared to anyone. So when we brought some sponsors on board, including a couple of really large telcos, and that was going to be honestly the turning point for the whole project, bringing these telcos on board, Apple turned around and said, wait a minute, you're doing what? That's not happening. And in fact, if you side with this project, you give any kind of money to this project, you support this project in any way, we won't allow you to sell iPhones in your stores. So that basically hobbled the business overnight. Now, the problem with that is that's a huge learning thing for me. Like, if you think about it, that taught me a valuable lesson about not just scanning the landscape for the consumer behavior, but also the business behavior, looking at what the other stakeholders in this are doing. I learned a lot from that process. Now, fast forward.
Can I just interrupt you there? Because I know that the listeners will be looking at the silver bullet section that you just talked about, and I have found that in my books, when I'm a writer too, so if I came up with a silver bullet and thought this is going to interest my readers, so you're also talking about changing their mindset, which I'm very much into, and they read your books and they would they find the silver bullet in your books, or is it changing the mindset to see the silver bullet?
It's changing the mindset. And this is the key thing for me is, like, my book's actually structured, my first book that is structured in 3 sections. So the first section is the framework. This is what experimentation is, gives you the background on it, how to implement that into your organization or to your business. But the second part of the book is really about the mindset required to do so. And this was the biggest challenge I thought was this fear of failure that people had would stop them from actually doing these experiments. So I have a whole section in there where I teach them how to build resilience, how to build fortitude, how to cultivate curiosity, how to actually remove cognitive bias from your understanding of data and of insights and things that you were getting as well. So it really was focused largely around those kind of mindset shifts that we wanted.
So you've just mentioned the word fear, and as an author myself, and coming from a sort of abusive background myself, my father was an alcoholic. So, you drag yourself out of that situation, don't you? And then, but you've got all this mindset that's actually built into you. And I found that I was surrounded by fear of what people would think about me. And that was my main stalling is what are people, I'm a little kid from Lower Hutt Nainai. What on earth are they going to think
by the way,
about?
I actually spent a large amount of my little childhood in Nainai. That was where I grew up as well. We were probably neighbors. Yeah.
I said to my husband last night when I was reading your bio, I know that man. I know him.
I went to Eastern Hutt Primary School, by the way. Eastern Hutt Primary School when I was 5. No, only for about half a year.
I went to primary school and Nainai College.
Yep. Wow. Yeah. Small world.
It certainly is. We came from the same neighborhood. How's that? Yeah. So back to you, Vince. So we're talking about fear and your books on mindset, if it's read correctly. And this is a big thing I find because I read a lot of improvement books. It's reading it correctly and then applying it. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And it's that we have this weird myth about fear. And I remember having to deal with this in my own life. So I suffer from imposter syndrome like anybody else. In fact, I remember publishing. And I remember publishing my first book. I spiraled so quick. Like, I knew this book was going to be a hit. I knew it was going to go down really well because I knew the content I was putting in there worked. I mean, I'd used it in every startup and every corporate environment that I'd been to, and I'd seen the successes from it. So no brainer. But as soon as I went to publish the book, someone said to me, "You can't do a book launch, Vince. Nobody does book launches anymore. No one goes to them." And I went, "I'm a marketer. Come on." So organized this launch. We had 100 or so people there. It was a really nice event, surrounded by people that I love, surrounded by people that I respect. Had my peers, actually a few people fly from Australia to come over for it as well.
Beautiful.
And it was a wonderful night. It really was. I'm a high extrovert. You put me in front of a crowd, I'm super happy. So I got to tell them my story, tell them how I wrote the book. And I knew that everyone was going to ask for a signed copy, which was weird for me because this concept of giving your autograph, essentially, I'm like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm barely an average karaoke singer. Why would they want my autograph, But then I realized if I'm going to a book launch, that's exactly what I want. So I was all prepped and ready. I bought myself a fancy new pen. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Turned up there, signed all these books. The one thing I didn't count on, though, Kes, was the fact that every single person said something along the lines of, "Oh, thanks, Vince. I can't wait to read this." And every single time they said that, my stomach would not. And I left that event that night thinking I should be on top of the world because I'm getting all this input from all these people and I'm high extrovert, so I should be energized. But I had all these conversations flying in my head going, who do you think you are, Vince? Like, what makes you think you have the right to write a book? What makes you think that anyone wants to hear what you have to say? Or if they read this book, you know what they're going to think. Amateur hour, like. So
the imposter syndrome hit you hard.
Oh, it didn't just tap me on the shoulder and whisper in my ear. This thing was screaming at me. So I did something terrible that night. I decided I didn't want to talk about my book anymore. I decided that's it. I'm not going to talk about it. So next day I rang. So I had Forbes, CIO magazine, and Diginomica all lined up to do interviews with me about the book and everything. They were doing a big spread on me. I had to contact all of them and say, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm just super busy. I don't have time to do this," which was rubbish. That was me just being afraid.
Yeah, and imagine the impact that would have had on you coming out as an author.
Well, it kind of did actually. I surprisingly got a lot of really good organic growth. Like honestly, the book sales went through the roof, which was awesome. But for 2 weeks, I was dead quiet. I wouldn't talk about it at all. No social post
Yeah.
about it, no press, nothing. And it was actually one of my mentors who called me up, and he's based in the US. He's like 8 times best-selling author or something. Like just a phenomenal guy. And normally, by the way, he never rings you. You have to book time with him. So it's
Okay.
it's very official. But he just rang
Yeah.
me out of the blue, and old-fashioned rang me like on the phone. And he just checked in with me and said, "Oh, how's it going?" I said, "Oh, good, good, good." And he said, "Yep. So how's the book sales going?" So I told him the numbers, and he was like, "Oh, actually, that's really good." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "But I haven't seen anything out there from you. I haven't seen any press. I haven't seen any social posts." And I said, "Yeah, I'm just really busy at the moment," which I was really busy, but I said, "I'm really
Yes.
busy at the moment, so I'm relying on word of mouth." And he goes, "I'm going to call you on that, Vince." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "I'm going to call BS on that right now." He said, "And I'm going to tell you a process that I go through every time I publish a book. And this is a traditionally published, best, like I
Yes.
said, New York Times best-selling author."
Yeah.
And he said, every single time one of my books goes out there to publish, and then he told me the exact process I just went through. And he
Oh,
told me every
wow.
single time I don't feel worthy, I think people are going to see through me. And it did 2 things to me, Kez. It actually helped me to, first of all, it actually like took away a lot of the fear that I had, or took away the
Yes.
effect of that fear.
Yeah, what of?
Yeah. And the second thing is it made me realize the importance of actually talking about this kind of stuff. So I did something unthinkable. The next day, I wrote a post, put it out on LinkedIn. I just said, "Look, this is the process I've just been through." And I wrote this big post up about imposter syndrome, what I was dealing with. And then at the end, I said, "So here, I'm going to take action on that now. And I'm going to tell you this. It's a damn good book. It is, because I've put my heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. I know this stuff works because I'm living it, So
Yes.
if you're a marketer or entrepreneur, go and buy the book. You're not going to regret it."
Oh, I
And
want to buy the book. Just listening to you, I want to go buy the book.
well, 2 things happened from there, though. One was a massive spike in sales, which obviously is really nice when you're an author. It was like, hey, this is awesome. The second thing that happened, though, Kez, was my inbox got flooded by people going, "Same," or "Me too," or "I feel like you were speaking my life." And that's when I realized that we all deal with this all the time. And there's a weird myth that we have to get rid of that fear. But this isn't the case. And this is the journey I went on, is to go, okay, if we're all feeling this, imposter syndrome, and, with that, because I have ADHD, with that comes a thing called RSD, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So I'm always fearful of rejection and things. So dealing with all this kind of stuff, I'm like, I need to understand how the brain works. And that's when I came across something really different, which is understanding what imposter syndrome is. And
now that's interesting, because people don't do that. They just think, I've got it. And how do I deal with it?
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
I grew up being a victim. Like as a child, I was continually powerless, continually at the mercy of other people's, drugs or alcohol, or whatever mood they're in at the time, or if they decided to set my hair on fire or shoot me or whatever else, like these were the things we just had to live with as kids. So I was determined not to be that. I need to control my own future. So that's why I study everything. But I discovered something, kids. I discovered that imposter syndrome itself isn't actually a bad thing, and fear itself isn't actually a bad thing. These are actually things that are designed to protect us. It's what we choose to do with those things that is really damaging,
Exactly.
So I started to understand that all the process I'd been through, that fear that I was feeling, that imposter syndrome that was kicking in, was actually my brain's way of going, hey, Vince, guess what? You're outside of your comfort zone right now, which makes you vulnerable, right? You've stepped well and truly out of that, and now you could be exposed. So my brain's role was to try and get me back into safety, to get me back into that little huddle of an area, and kind of keep me warm and safe and secure. So it does that using fear. So it goes, hey, you're going to be exposed. But once I understood what the brain was doing, it was really easy for me to then go, okay, well, hang on a minute. If my brain is sending me a signal to tell me you're outside of your comfort zone, the other truth that I know is, as entrepreneurs, as authors, as anybody who's creative, outside of the comfort zone is exactly where you need to be. That's where growth happens. That's where breakthrough happens. That's where prosperity happens. So stepping out of the comfort zone was exact. So my brain was basically just saying, hey, Vince, guess what? You're exactly where you need to be right now. So I had to retrain my brain to understand that, and then to embrace imposter syndrome and to embrace fear, So yeah.
It's for me, it was embracing those two things. Coming from my background, it was like, my whole body said, I don't want to do this. I actually got sick.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
Mm.
And then my brain stepped in and said, but how are you going to get the word across? Because I like to write about emotional issues. So, but it comes in fiction story form. But it's it was training my mind. You're so right, Vince. It really was getting like it was like getting it and ringing it in two and saying, I don't want to be that person, but I know it's there. So I'd like to ask you another question: is that do all your books encourage empowerment and for all entrepreneurs to be seen and heard?
1000%. Yes. I think it's natural for me anyway, because that's who I am. I mean, I left my dream job. I left that job at Cigna, which, as I said, on paper was perfect, got all the recognition there, won a slew of awards, even got recognized by Adobe as one of the top 50 marketers in the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I sat there in the office going, I don't want this job. I'm really unhappy. I was miserable. And that's when and also I felt a huge amount of shame and guilt about that as well. I was really embarrassed by the fact that
guilt.
Most people wanted that job. And here I was going, I felt ungrateful. I felt like I don't want this. But I had to realize why that was. And it was because I was unfulfilled. And that's when I realized that the reason I'm unfulfilled is I'm not where I am designed to be, which is in front of people, helping people. I genuinely have a heart. I love entrepreneurship. Like I said, I started when I was 11. It is something I'm really, really passionate about. And helping entrepreneurs is just built into my DNA as a result of that. So for me, that empowerment piece is really important. I don't like going in and saying to someone, I'm going to tell you how to do something. I would rather help them to come to the conclusion themselves. Like, rather than go, I'm going to do, social media strategy, for example. I don't want to go in and do the social media strategy for you. I want to help you to come up with it. So therefore, when you see it, it's not something that causes tension. It's something that you can own and you're proud of. Same with when helping any of my clients become authors. I'm like, and we've talked about this before, but traditional publishers really do bother me. And sorry to Hay House and all of you guys. I know you're awesome.
No, sorry.
But the reality is, they do control the narrative of your book because they've been doing this for so long and they know what sells and what doesn't. Exactly. The thing that they miss is it's your book. And this is the thing with any of my clients. I want to make sure that if I'm helping them to become published authors, and I put them through my own publishing company, my developmental editor has a very clear directive. This is their book. Anything you give them is merely recommendations. It is their book. We need to empower people to be able to do this themselves rather than be dependent on us.
So with that discussion, I'm going to ask you something that has been asked me many times. How do you know the difference? How do you know that you're on, there's many words bandied about. How do you know you're an entrepreneur? Is it a feeling? Is it knowledge? Is it read knowledge? For me personally, it was knowing that it was a calling more than anything. And I wouldn't call myself so much an entrepreneur as in I'm a writer. And I don't like to wear any hat bigger than that. I'm a writer and I love to entertain. So how would you say that people recognize their own entrepreneurship? Because each and every one of us are different.
Oh, 1000% different. And I'll just challenge you on one thing there too, Kez. You are definitely an entrepreneur. I know you don't like wearing hats bigger than being an author, but you are definitely, if you're a writer, if you're an author, you are an entrepreneur. You have a product that you are selling. You have a story that you're telling. You have something that you've created that makes you an entrepreneur, and a good one at that. So for me, it's definitely not knowledge. And I'll tell you why, because as an entrepreneur, we have no idea what the hell we're doing. No, none of us do. We just make this stuff up as we go along. And actually, that's exactly how it should be. You shouldn't be embarrassed about that. Because if you think about what you're doing, when you're creating a new company or you're writing a new book, you are going into uncharted territories. You are creating something that does not exist. You're calling it into existence, which means technically you are making things up as you go along. So that's a good thing. So it's definitely not the knowledge. And I don't even know if it's a feeling. It kind of is a feeling, but it's more, I like to say it's the creativity. And if you have the desire to create something, if you have, and you'll know if you've got this, it's like a little spark inside you. It's a little hook. When you get that inside you, then that's it. Guess what? You're an entrepreneur, whether you accept it or know it or believe it or not, So,
so I'm a firm believer in it's spark. It's not learned. I mean, I didn't learn this at college.
Yeah.
I didn't learn it at university. I learned it through literally my husband going up north to the Pilbara, and I was on my own, and the spark grew, and I thought, I can't just sit here. I just
Yeah.
can't sit here. So
Well, one of my clients, Kez, was hilarious. She was like, I don't know if I'm an entrepreneur. I've got this idea. So I helped her to develop the idea and said, look, well, what if you thought about it from this perspective? And she's like, oh, yeah. Then she rang me up one day and she was like, oh, I'm so frustrated. And I said, why? And she goes, my day job, I'm hating it right now. Everything is frustrating me. Everything's annoying me. And I said, well, that's obvious. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, you're an entrepreneur now. That hook is inside of you. You're already starting to germinate the seed that's in you. You're starting to birth this idea. The more you do that, the more a corporate job or a retail job or whatever else is just going to frustrate the heck out of you because you want to create something new.
Yes, I agree entirely. It's creating the new. It's sitting there and knowing that it's your baby. You're giving birth to it, and it's exciting. It really is. With any entrepreneur that I talk to, they all actually agree with you. It's not knowledge; it's a feeling.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
you were challenged to write your first book.
Yep.
And how did that make you feel when you had to change your beliefs in yourself?
Scary. I actually had three motivations to write my first book. So one of them was the fact that I was getting all this success with all the stuff that I'd done. And I had, like, particularly I worked at Cigna Insurance. I had every Cigna market of the world going, hey, Vince, we want to grab an hour of your time every week. And I'm going, well, if there's over 40 markets and they want an hour of my time each week, that's over a full-time job. What about I write down this in a book form and then I can make some money from it and I'll sell it all to them. And that worked really well. But the other two reasons, one was a friend of mine that he had published his first book, but he didn't tell me. He was based in an agency up in Auckland and he was moving to New York. He was going to set up a new agency there and set up a new startup. So he came down and saw me and we had a beer before he went. And he said, look, I'm heading off there. And I said, oh, yeah, but I'm going to miss you. And he goes, yeah, same, man. He goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm a published author now. And I went, wait, what? This is awesome. I was freaking out. I'm going, dude, why didn't you tell me? We're going to celebrate. And he goes, oh, I wouldn't bother. It's rubbish. I said, you can't say that about your own book.
My God.
I know. But the reason he did that, the reason he said that was because he did it as a social experiment. He wanted to prove that when you were a published author, it would open doors for you. And I'm like, okay, well, did it work? And he goes, way better than I thought. Like, honestly, the doors that opened for him, he was really surprised about. So I thought to myself, you know what? I want a piece of that. I like that idea. I like the fact that people will take you more seriously. People will give you more credibility, more thought leadership if you're a published author. But then the third reason, though, and this is the one that really did challenge me, is, and this is, I have a cheeky kind of nature as an entrepreneur. I don't like being told I can't do something. It really, really bothers me. So
that up, Vince.
yeah, funny that. But I used to work with this angry Canadian woman, and she was. I read that. Yeah, she had written a couple of books before, and I'm like, oh yeah. And we were in a leadership meeting there at one of my previous organizations, not one of my companies, but one of the corporates I worked with. And my job there was I was the marketing guy. I was the digital marketing guy particularly. And one of the things that I kept getting was from universities and tertiary institutions wanted me to travel around the world and talk to them and teach them digital marketing. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And we're sitting in a leadership meeting, and actually we're standing because she was right next to me. She's really short. And they were talking about the fact that the universities want me to go on the road again and want me to go do some workshops with them. And she lost it. She was like, why is it always Vince? Vince. That's all I ever hear. He's not an author. He wouldn't make an author's a-hole. And I went, A, I'm right next to you. And B, challenge accepted. So I decided at that point I was going to be an author. Now, through the writing process, because it actually took me a while to write the book, but part of that was because of a tragedy that happened during it. So I would set aside an hour every day, early in the morning. So usually about 4 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. I would set aside an hour every morning at 4 o'clock to write my book.
Yes.
Now, the problem with that is during that time, one of my sisters, who I'm very close with, was diagnosed with melanoma, with cancer. And it spread very, very fast and things. So now she's tough. Like, honestly, this woman is she was incredible. So for about a year, while she was dealing with all this, and she had 2 teenage boys and a husband, but what would happen is they would go to bed and they would go to sleep, and then she would wake up and she was putting on the brave face for everyone, going, I'm not in pain and I'm not afraid, I'm not scared. but she knew that I was online. She was based in Australia, so she knew I was online and knew with the time zone difference that would work well. So would jump on a call with me and just basically say, look, I'm scared, I'm afraid, and I'm in pain. So for a year, I gave up that time for writing to spend with my sister and to help her and to encourage her as well to talk to her husband and be open with her kids about this, because they need to be strong as well, because you know, you're trying to get through this. Now, unfortunately, she lost the battle with cancer and she passed away.
I'm so sorry.
But fortunately, I got to say my goodbye to her, not in person. She said to me, come fly over. And I said, no, I'm not going to, because she had deteriorated. And I said, she was my older sister. She was my only natural sister. And I said to her, look, you've always been the rock for me. You've always been this pillar of strength, you know, especially growing up. So I don't want to change that opinion. I don't want to see you as weak. I want to talk to you on the phone. So I talked to her and we said our goodbyes. And I said to her, because she only had 24 hours left to live, and said our goodbyes and that. And then she said to me before she passed, she goes, oh, one more thing. I said, what? And she goes, you know that book? I said, book. And she goes, the book you're writing? I went, yeah. And she goes, the one that you sacrificed all that time for me? I went, yeah. And she goes, if you don't finish that bloody book, I am going to haunt you. Which part of me was going, hey, that'd be kind of cool to be haunted by my sister, because she's awesome. But it really did shift another mindset in me, which is actually now this is important. And now it made me realize how important the story was within there, and the journey of going through writing as well. So I really did finish the book to honor my sister. And
beautiful. It's I've always found that, you know, something as huge as that really changes your, not your insight, but your outlook.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's not so much I have to finish this book because I'm going to be famous or I'm going to make lots of money. It changes it to the fact that you're honoring yourself and you're honoring your sister's wishes.
Exactly.
I think most senior writers have had some sort of something happen in their lives that have made them stop and think, why am I doing this? And I did it because I'm the only one left in my family. I'm totally the only one left. And so, it's like, well, who gives a damn? Well, my children. I
love the little self-censoring there, Kez. I could tell what you really wanted to say.
Thank you. So Vince, we've gotten down to the questions of, you've won numerous awards. Which one made your blood run the quickest?
Okay, that's easy for me, because I did not deal with this very well. So the awards are always cool, and I like it because it's recognition of hard work and it's recognition of creativity, and it's like everyone likes to get a pat on the back. It's awesome. But I got a call one day from Adobe, or an offshoot at Adobe called Marketo, and they were like, hey, we want you to come and speak at this conference. I said, yeah, sure. Send me through the details. I was literally about to go on stage in Sydney at a conference. I said, send me through the details. And they're like, yep. So I got off the stage, sat down in the front row. I look and I was like, oh, there's an email from them. Oh, the silly goose. They've sent me the wrong one. So I emailed them back and said, oh, you sent me for one in San Francisco. And they went, yeah. We want to fly you over there. We're going to pay you business class and we'll put you in a 5-star hotel. And we want you to be a keynote at this conference, but you have to come. And I replied and said, well, yes and no. As in, yes, I'm definitely going to come. No, I'm not going to allow you to pay for all that, because we use Adobe products at my business. And I'm always fearful of conflict of interest. So I said, I will pay my own way. I'll come over there. And then Cigna found out about it and went, no, Vince, this is a massive opportunity. We'll pay for you. And I was like, yes, back to business class. But I went over to this conference and they were really adamant. They said, yeah, but you've got to come. And I said, yeah, okay, calm down. So I got to this conference and it was amazing. Such incredible atmosphere. There's 7,000 people there. And they announced at the beginning, it was like, this is our conference and here's our 25 keynotes. And they had 25 keynotes and they had a bunch of celebrity keynotes. Like Jamie Foxx was there. They had some Olympic athletes. They had Flo Rida, a few others. But then they announced that actually the surprise was they were also announcing the first half of the Fearless 50, which is basically the top 50 marketers in the world. Right. And they've chosen the top 25. And then they said, and here are the top 25, your keynotes. And I'm like, whoa, that's so lucky. Wait, I'm in the top 25 keynotes. And then I realized I'm actually one of these people. And I'm looking on the stage. I'm looking at all the people I look up to in the industry. I knew every single other person in that grouping. And I'm like, oh my goodness, these are my heroes. Yeah. And then there's me. So
Yes.
it was, and then to make it worse, by the way, the CEO, for the conference that was coming out saying, oh, and by the way, we really want to highlight 3 of those. One of them's all the way from New Zealand. And I'm going, what? My brain just disengaged. So he was looking up at a giant
Yes.
photo of me going, man, that guy looks like me. And I'm like, and he's from New Zealand as well. And then my name came up and I'm going,
Love it.
wait, he's got the same name as me. Like my brain just went on holiday and said, I'm sorry, man, I can't deal with this. But it really was imposter syndrome on steroids. I'm standing there going, this is, I was waiting for them to go, oh, wait, sorry, man, we meant the other Vince Warnock, some guy in Germany.
We made a mistake.
Yeah. But so the award itself meant a lot, but it also caused me to really struggle with imposter syndrome. And to make it worse, we had one of the sessions there was from this professor. She's studies psychology. She was doing research papers on imposter syndrome. So I'm like, hello, I'm definitely going to see her session. And I'm there and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write a book on this one day. So every stat she was giving me, I was writing them down. I'm like, this is gold. I've got to get her book. I've got to get her research. This is going to be awesome. And then she said, and here's how we sabotage ourselves. And I went, hang on, what? And she listed all these ways. And it was like, seriously, a checkbox of my life. And I just looked at this and it was like, ouch, ouch, ouch. So I left that session and I really wanted to go to the next session, but I couldn't. I just said, I need to go somewhere. So I left the conference, went to a Starbucks, felt really sorry for the poor girl that worked at Starbucks. I just went and sat in the corner and I had this piece of paper and a pen. And I'm writing down all the ways I've sabotaged my career and my life and all this. And she came over to me and she goes, are you okay? And I'm there, tears streaming down my face going, I'm fine. I'm just reevaluating my life. And she's like, okay, crazy man alert. But it really did cause me to kind of stop and reassess myself and actually look and go, you know what? I'm here for a reason. The reason I was recognized wasn't because of my good looks and charm, which obviously that should have been up there because of that. But no,
definitely. I agree.
Of course, yeah. But no, it was because of the challenge I had to the industry about doing better. And one of the things I try and teach the marketing industry is, look, we have a duty of care, not just for data and privacy. We all know that, but we have a duty of care for our clients and our audience to make sure that our messaging isn't misleading or manipulating them, right? We should never drive someone to an outcome that they wouldn't have come to themselves. So that challenge in itself was getting recognized. And I had to actually realize that impacts people and that helps people. And it really did make me stop and reassess myself and go, you know what? I've got to stop hiding. I've got to stop, like doubting myself and standing behind imposter syndrome and going, I'm not good enough. If I really want to impact this world, which I do, I need to put myself out there. I need to get in front of people and say, you know what? I've got solutions that are going to help you succeed. I can help, I help people become authors. I help them launch podcasts, help them get on stages. I help them get seen, help them get profitable. But if I don't do that, if I hide behind this imposter syndrome and fear, then I'm denying them the potential to have breakthrough. And that's not fair. So it really did cause me to shift a whole pile of stuff in my mindset.
Yeah, I think it's amazing what actually happens to change your mindset. I recently had one of my books made into a short movie.
Fantastic. And you didn't tell me that. No. That's awesome.
It premieres this tomorrow night. It premieres. But it's like, oh my goodness, how did that happen? But I realized, on the quiet moments I do have these days, now all the grandkids have left. I realized that I did it.
Yeah, you did. I love that. Yeah,
I did.
So cool. I'm just buzzing for you. I'm celebrating. That's awesome. Fantastic.
Thank you. It's and I think that's what I've read the bio of some of your books to do my homework on interviewing you. The whole signature of both books was, you can do this. This is entirely up to you. I will hold your hand.
Yeah.
But I do like the way you wrote about the imposter syndrome, what it can do to you.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy that because it's so true. I think every single person in the world carries that gene with them.
100%. And this was the big, so I go back, we'll cycle all the way back to age 11 again. This was a really pivotal moment for me. So growing up in an abusive household, right? I wanted to hide my entire childhood because anytime you put your hand up or your head up or you stood out from everyone else, you were a target and you became the thing that took the beating,
Yes.
So for me,
Understand it completely.
yeah. So I lived in fear at home. School was a happy place, though. School was a place where I could just kind of let my guard down a little bit and be free. But at age 11, I was in this class. I actually found a school bully at that point as well. So I'm going, great. I've got a bully at home and a bully at school. This is not fair. But I had this inspirational teacher, and I was a bit of a smart ass as a kid because I was very bright in a kind of very poverty-stricken kind of area and things. But I didn't see any future for myself. And I remember we were doing these projects, and we had to do these like little papers on a topic that we really like. I chose sharks because, all the boys chose sharks and spiders and things, dinosaurs, and the girls had horses and all this. It was
unicorns and fairies.
Exactly. A different time back then. But I was doing this project on sharks, and then the teacher said, hey, don't forget, you're going to have to do a oral presentation. So you're going to have to get up in front of the class. And I was like, why? And he goes, it's going to prepare you for the future, Vince, when you have to speak on stages and all this kind of stuff. And I went, when are we ever going to get the chance to do that? I mean, come on. So I was this 11-year-old cheeky kid, and my teacher just went, well, how about now? And he called me up in front of the class, and he said, here's what we're doing, Vince. Okay, class, listen up. Vince is going to speak for 5 minutes on a topic. Class, what's the topic he's going to speak on? And, being the creative geniuses they are at age 11, they said, an egg. Yeah. So I had to speak on an egg for 5 minutes. Now, he did this to kind of jolt me a bit and to make me realize that actually I should pay attention to him probably and stop being a smart ass in his class is probably more aligned with it. But what happened was he goes, right, you got 20 seconds to prepare. And then he goes, right, your time starts now. And in the moment he said that, the only thing in my head was that stupid saying, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So I said that out loud. As soon as I did that, my brain went into this other realm. I don't even know how to describe it, but these words just flowed. And I found I could pull a thread to make everyone laugh. I could pull a thread to make everyone go, or make them well up a bit inside. And I was like, what is happening? And I just kept going and going until he said, you've got 20 seconds left. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so obviously the chicken came first. I don't remember anything else in the speech. That's all I remember. everyone cheered. And I was like, whoa, it was kind of a rush of a feeling.
Yes.
But I remember turning around to my teacher, and he looked at me and he said, Vince, that was fantastic. And I said, thank you. And he goes, no, that was really good. He goes, you have a gift. Do you realize you could do something really significant with your life? And the moment he said that, I felt this weird feeling. I was like, what is this? And it was hope. It was a belief in myself.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And what he gave me there was so powerful and so personal. And I went, at that point, two things happened. One, I wanted to change the narrative of my life. I was like, that's it. I am going to be something. Like he said, I've got the opportunity to do this. I'm going to do this. But the other thing it did, Kez, was it made me realize that I want everyone else to feel that feeling, to feel that sense of hope and of a future and of the fact that you can create something special. So yes, that comes through in everything I do. I want to emulate what that teacher did for me. I want people to know that you can do this.
That's nice.
That's
nice, Vince.
Yeah. So,
I had almost the same situation with one of my teachers, but when I was in my teens. But the thing that changed my outlook on life was when I was a tiny child, I won a little gold star for story writing, and that star has stayed in my mind. Forever. I've actually got it all over my office. I have these gold stars on my office just to remind me of that feeling I felt when I was a child, and why not bring it back into your life?
Oh my goodness.
So the other question.
Yep.
Sorry, the other question I have for you is you wrote about a specific tool in changing the mindset, but that's all you really wrote about and it made me think to myself, I've got to ask what this tool is.
Yep. This tool is what I call an impact list. So one of the things when dealing with imposter syndrome.
Could you say that again? Sorry, Vince.
Impact list. Yep.
Okay.
Impact. So one of the things I realized is dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with self-doubt, dealing with fear, dealing with all these kind of things is often that the reality is not matching what's going on in your head. And I see this all the time. My wife's a great example of this. She's one of the most talented counselors I've ever seen. She does a lot of work. Her job is so hard. She does a lot of work with teenagers, with young children, and that helping them through grief, helping them through traumatic episodes and traumatic things that happen to them.
It's a pandemic, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It is a huge pandemic. Honestly, don't get her started on that. It would take 5 hours for her to stop. But she does such an important work, but she constantly doubts herself going, I don't know that, because it's such an important role. She goes, I don't know that I have what it takes. And I'm going, the evidence is completely different from the words coming out of your mouth. So I came up with this concept. I actually stole this from the cookie jar method that David Goggins came up with. So his was just putting cookies in a jar kind of thing. But I thought, let's shift this a bit. Let's change the focus of this, and let's write an impact list, which is where you write down every single person you impact in your job, in your life, and it could be with your books you're writing and things like that. If you don't know the name of them, just write down anonymous or whatever. Write down every review where people have said that they were really impacted by your books or really impacted by the work that you do. For me, I started writing down, I took the rubbish out for my neighbor because it was pouring down with rain. I knew he had a bad hip. And I thought, actually, if he goes out there, he's going to slip and that's going to cause some damage. I'll just take it down. So I took it down without even thinking about it, and then found out afterwards that it had a huge impact on him. Or it's the person you pull over and change the tire with them, when they're broken down. So write a list of all these. And what you got to do, you write down the name if you've got it, write down the challenge that they had and what you did to help them, and then the outcome. Okay. Right? So nice and simple. And you create this list. And you just keep adding to this list consistently and keep adding to it every time you get feedback. And the reason is not because you're vain, not because you want to feel good about that, but the reason is it does three things. The first thing it does is on the days where you're really struggling, and we all have those days. I have those days.
We do. Yes.
You wake up and you go, you know what? I can't even get out of bed today. It's too hard. Life's too hard. I just want to reset the whole day, go back to bed. On those days, reading that list is really going to help you, right? Reading that list, because it's going to do two things. It's going to help you by understanding that you are having a huge impact on people. It's understanding that if you don't show up, then you're denying people impact, which is really important. In other words, you're making it
I like that.
Making it about somebody else. And then the other thing you're going to realize is, looking at this, you're going to realize that your belief and what's coming out of your mouth or certain things you're saying are not lining with what the evidence is. So if you're saying, this is too hard, I'm not good enough, I'm not good at my job, or I'm not good as a writer, and you're reading all this thing from people saying, wow, what a fantastic writer, you're so good at your job, etc. It's going to realign your thoughts. And the reason this is so powerful, Kez, is because if you think about how our eyes work, for example, like we look at, if we're looking inward, so if I'm looking at self-doubt and imposter syndrome, I'm looking at fear, I'm looking at me because it's how I'm feeling. So it's like my eyes, everything is fixated on this little tiny bubble around my life. Yeah. But the moment I shift my perspective and I go, you know what? I'm now going to focus on the people that I'm impacting. I'm going to focus on all the people.
I like that.
Well, straight away, your shift in focus means that everything that's close to you is now in your peripheral vision, which means you're not focused on it at all, which means it has less power over you. And I saw this with my daughter. She's a great example of this. When she was about 14, I think it was, she was playing netball, and she's a dedicated netball player. And they were playing this team. It's a really good team, but they were a team that were very aggressive and decided, because they were in danger of losing, they were going to play the player, not the ball. So my daughter was there, and this girl came up behind and kicked the back of her leg, and my daughter went down on her knee on this concrete and gashed her knee, and blood was coming out of her knee and everything. Now she looked down at her knee and just went, and you could see the thought process. She's going, I've got 1 minute left of this game. So she was like, okay, went to put weight on it, couldn't put weight on her leg. Goes, okay, so she hopped. And she was there going, right. She intercepted the ball while hopping, passed it off to somebody else. They got a goal. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is intense. She's there trying to intercept. They won by like 1 point. It was incredible.
Oh, that's amazing.
The whistle went. And my daughter looked down at her knee. And the moment she looked down at her knee, her focus shifted from the game, from the thing that she was doing, to who she is and what she was feeling. And then the tears started flowing and she couldn't walk and everything. And it taught me such a valuable lesson about perspective and around focus. So impact list is one of the most powerful tools you can ever use. You just have to make sure you're diligent in writing it down, adding to it consistently, and going back to it, training yourself to go back when you're struggling, training yourself to go back when you're having self-doubt or imposter syndrome.
So would you call that impact list? Would you call that appreciating your own skills?
Yeah, it's not just skills though. I would go, because when we look at skills, we look at the things that are taught. It's appreciating actually who you are. Because this is the thing that most people miss is that. You're incredibly unique, every single person, right? And we say this a lot, and people go, oh yeah, fingerprints and all that kind of stuff. But actually go a little bit deeper. Look at the fact that every single one of us has had different experiences in our life. We've had different challenges, different obstacles, different scars, different learnings, different people speaking into our life, different personalities. All this unique mix of all of these things make you incredibly unique. So it's not just your skills that you're representing here, like going out and taking my neighbor's trash out. That's not skills. That was just me going, you know what? I don't want somebody to be hurt. So it is appreciating who I am rather than what I'm doing,
I agree totally. It's we need to start practicing. It's not magic. It's
not.
But it's simple faith in ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about the magic, and I'm a great believer in magic does happen, but it's that what you're doing is encouraging us, all of us, to recognize, and if you don't call it a skill, then recognize your empathy for other things that have gone on in life.
That's it.
I think it's just very, very important. So your book, Cultivating a Mindset, this is obviously your mission in life.
Oh yeah, mindset's everything. It really is.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I've seen it time and time again. It's the thing that I battle with time and time again, but it's also the thing that helps me to overcome time and time again. You just need to. In fact, one of the key things is, and it's a big chapter in the book, and there is around cultivating curiosity. And I go into there about the link between curiosity and intelligence, like IQ. It's a correlative link, not a causative link. But if you look at this from a correlative perspective, you can actually see that you can increase your curiosity, which you can't increase your intelligence. So maybe you can have a flow-on effect with it. So I go into that. But one of the key reasons I do that is because I want people to get back to what they were like as a kid, asking as many questions as possible. And I learned this. So one of the things I learned is to ask as many questions about people as possible, to try and understand not just what people are about, but understand why they do the things they do. And I had this, I talked about having that bully when I was at age 11. That bully tormented me for 2 years. He made my life hell. But then when we got to the end of that 2 years, he went off to a different school, because we all went off to what we call high school. It's college, it's called high school in the US. But we went off to high school. And he went to a different one to me. So I'm like, finally, I'm free. I'm age 13. I'm like, that's it. I'm free of the bully. Yes, my life's going to be amazing again. Still had the bully at home, but that was okay. But I decided I was sick of being a victim. I was sick of being the one that everyone used as a punching bag. So I threw myself into learning martial arts and boxing. And I wouldn't say, definitely not Bruce Lee or Jet Li here, but certainly got to be able to defend myself. And at age 17, so my last year of high school, he got transferred back to our school. And I'm like,
oh my dear God.
I know. I'm like, this is, I've seen every 80s movie. This is the moment that the nerd comes out on top, or the underdog finally comes out. I'm like, this is going to be my moment. It's going to be glorious. And he walked past me, and I yelled his name, and I yelled a few expletives. And he turned around, as he always did, waddles over, tries to take a swing at me. Ha, ha, ha. Nope. Took another swing at me. I'm like, nah. And he took a few swings at me, and then finally, bam, I laid him out. I'm not a violent person at all, by the way, but I laid him out, and he was laying on the ground, and I looked down, and I was thinking, wait, I don't feel good. I thought I was going to feel amazing. I didn't feel good at all. And next thing you know, I'm in the principal's office, because that's what happens when you fight at school.
That's right.
And the principal pulled me aside, and he did something that stunned me. He said, look, Vince, he said, do you know why he transferred to our school? And I went, I don't care. I'm a staunch 17-year-old. I'm trying not to care. I went, I don't care. And he goes, well, you should care. He said, because, and he told me the story. He said his father abused him and his sister and his mother every day since he was a toddler. Right? Every day, to the point where the father abused the mother so badly in front of the two children that she lost her life. He effectively murdered her in front of the two kids.
It's awful.
Yeah, it was incredibly terrible. Now, rightfully so, the father went to jail, right, and went to serve time there. But the two kids went and lived with an auntie and uncle, and they happened to be near our school, and that's why they're here. And I went, well, I didn't know that. And he goes, no, and I wouldn't expect you to know that, Vince. He said, but of all the people that might have understood what he's going through, and all the people that could potentially have been there for him, I would have thought that would be you. And that made me realize two things. One, I'm not the hero of this story. Right? I was the villain in this story. I was the one that had the opportunity to do something outside of the normal patterns he always saw in life. To actually do something to be there for him, rather than just be a thug and hit him like I did. But it also taught me that I have no idea what's going on in people's lives.
That's right.
I can't judge their behavior because I haven't walked in their shoes. So if we can teach curiosity to people, if we can teach people to try and deeply understand each other, we won't just be better as entrepreneurs and authors. We're actually going to be better human beings. We're going to be able to tolerate each other and have conversations and just change the world. It's going to be awesome. Also, it taught me, by the way, the 80s movies lied to us. Don't believe 80s movies. They're throwing it out there. Unless it's Star Wars, because, technically two of those came out in the 80s. just it's all a lie.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I really firmly believe that kindness and communication is the only way to go.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I think we've all experienced bullies,
Yep.
especially successful people, because we've had to climb out that box that they try and
Yep.
put us in. And and you've done it. You've done a magic job. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, Kez. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I think we've got about 5 minutes left of our interview. So would you like to tell the listeners your contact details? They will be on the script below,
Awesome.
but let's hear it from you.
Well, I make it really hard for people to find. No, I'm kidding. I make it really easy. You just need to go to chasingtheinsights.com. That is my website. It's the home of my podcast. It is also the home of my books. But it's also where you're going to see a couple of, it's also the home of all of my social media links. So unless you're a spammer, please just connect with me on every social platform. I love meeting new people. It's awesome. But there's also two links on there.
I'll definitely be connecting with you.
Oh, yes. I look forward to it, Kez. But there's also 2 links on there that are important. One of them is booking a free strategy call. If you're an entrepreneur and you're struggling with anything marketing-wise, hey, I'm here. I'm a resource. Use me. So book a free half-hour session with me. I'll give you clarity. But it's also the home of part of my collaboration book special. So have a look in there. There's a section, or there's a menu item that says Become an Author. If that's something